Are you making nooses?
Is my video on?
Tiny little nooses.
Oh.
Yes. What are you showing us?
No, I have the tie that was on this cord for the microphone, and
Yes.
We thought you were threatening us with,
Death?
I was threading a string through it. So.
Welcome to My Hill to Die On, episode 50.
Everyone has things they're passionate about.
Things we want our friends to try and experience.
So we've convinced some people to try different things.
Then we'll talk about these experiences to see if we can get just 8 more people
to join us on our Hill to Die On. As this is our special 50th episode, because I'm clearly a masochist, I said, hey, let's get all the people who live in our time zone who have been on an episode before, and let's get them all together for one episode of pure, unadulterated chaos. So, we have with us today a number of people. So I'm going to list them as they are presented in my chat log, because that's how I'm going to do. So first in this is actually my co-host, Nate Rudd, who has been here for many, many episodes.
I'm not sure I want to be called that anymore.
What? Your co-host?
I'm not a co-host. I'm your co-host. Yep. Okay, never mind.
I mean, what else am I going to call you? The Vincini to this podcast?
Oh, am I the mastermind? Uh-oh.
I'm definitely not the mastermind of this.
You're more of the albino, Ryan.
It's a pit of despair. Yeah. So the next person on my list is Nash Bridges.
Hello.
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 So welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
Following Nash in my list is Scott Ponzani.
Bonjour.
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 And the person who has continuously interrupted everybody else's intro, that is, of course, Zach Smoker.
Oh, we're not saying hello to each other?
Oh, no, you can say it. Now, I'm just giving you a hard time because otherwise it is just me listing off names.
Sounds good.
In addition to those people, we also have Keith Kelleth.
Hello.
Hello. And then, in addition to all of those people, there's also Jamie.
Hello.
Hello. Wow, you guys are really changing up that intro. Next in my list is Angie Hall.
Good evening.
Good evening, and I believe you have a special guest next to you.
Yes, Mika is also here.
Really?
Yes.
She is present, but she is eating a bone right now, so she's very busy.
In addition to those people, we also have Nate Gibson.
Hello. Hopefully my computer doesn't drop me again before I finish speaking.
So far, so good, I think. And then we have Terence Van Dam.
Greetings.
Greetings.
To you too.
And I believe that is my list of people. As we are going to talk about a classic comedy story that everybody holds very dear to their hearts, I felt like we normally do a pick 2 between me and Nate, but I'd like to do kind of a pick 1 where we just hear about some of your favorite comedy stories before we go and talk about The Princess Bride for hours upon end. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have you tell me a bit about a comedy story that you have loved, that you'd love for us all to either read or watch or be exposed to in some way. Sound good?
Yippee-ki-yay.
Because I am a mean person, I'm making Nate go first.
Alrighty, I'll go first. It's been a long time since I've read this, and I want to read it again, and Audible had a sale a while back that had all the subsequent sequels for free, so I grabbed them all up, but I have to go listen to them. And this is Very Good Jeeves by P.G. Wodehouse. It was actually one of my very first Audible gets, and it's a hilarious book about a butler and the guy he takes care of in England.
Yeah, P.G. Wodehouse is good stuff.
Mm-hmm. They have a very good rendition on BBC by Stephen Fry and Hugh Laurie. It's very funny if you haven't seen that, but it's definitely a great book about a man in Britain who really can't take care of himself and a butler who does it all for him, basically.
I believe the BBC version is called Wooster and Jeeves, or Jeeves and Wooster.
I think it's Jeeves and Wooster is the BBC version, yeah. It's good stuff.
Mm-hmm. So, Nash.
I think you may have already said this on the podcast, but Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog?
Nice.
Yes, we actually had a whole episode about that one.
I thought so. It's just about a villain who has a sing-along blog, and he is singing.
He's got to do what a man's got to do.
Yes. He's trying to get into the evil League of Evil with his minion.
With Bad Horse.
Yes, with Bad Horse.
The thoroughbred of sin?
The thoroughbred of sin.
Bad Horse.
Bad Horse. So lots of good music.
It was very good. We did have a fun episode about that.
Yes, so if you have not heard that episode, I do highly recommend going back and listening to the backlog.
Because, everyone's a hero in their own way. You, and mostly me and you.
Commentary the Musical offers a whole nother set of songs, too.
You mean, like, what was it? Nobody
Wants to Be Moist. Yeah.
Ew.
So Dr. Horrible's henchman?
Yeah, sort of, yeah.
Friend, his superpower is being moist.
That's disgusting.
He makes people feel like they want to take a shower.
I could do that myself.
Scott,
All right.
you're next on the list.
I will tell you about the first book of a series that I've enjoyed for many years. It's called The Alto War Tweed,
Oh, that's a good one. Yes.
and it's by Mark Schweitzer. It's a series of liturgical mysteries. The main character, Hayden Koenig, is the police chief in a small Appalachian town of St. Germain in North Carolina. I mean, it's not a real town, of course. He's the police chief, but his part-time job is the choir director and organist at the St. Barnabas Episcopal Church. And he's also determined to write the latest great hard-boiled mystery novel. So he buys Raymond Chandler's typewriter. Raymond Chandler was like one of the first hard-boiled mystery novel writers. He buys the actual typewriter, expecting inspiration. And so he writes a chapter of a book, and the book that he's writing is also the title of the book that you're holding in your hand. So it's a book within a book at some points. And he gives a chapter to the choir every Sunday to read during the sermon. And they're just hilarious. So each book is a mystery, a murder mystery. And you get to about the 9th in this series, and people start asking, why are so many people being murdered in this small North Carolina town? But they're absolutely hilarious. He raises an owl, and he's independently wealthy already because he invented something. I can't remember. It might have been software or something. And so he doesn't need the money from either the police chief job or the organist choir director job. But this North Carolina town is filled with all the stereotypical kind of Southern characters. You've got the hairdresser, and you've got a restaurant owner who eventually marries the mayor of the town, and just lots and lots of shenanigans going on in this quaint little town that people come by during the fall to see the leaves and during Christmas to see the decorations. So anyway, that's the book I recommend. If you're a church geek or a music geek or a hard-boiled novel geek or just a murder mystery geek, fits lots of genre there.
So in other words, if you're a geek?
I was going to say that, yeah.
Well, yeah, but okay, Nate enjoyed the book.
I did. I enjoyed it. It was very fun. I think I read 3 of them, and I want to read more. I just haven't been getting to it.
Oh, okay.
I bought the set for my father, who's a choir director too.
Oh, great.
Are you calling Nate a geek?
He'd be accurate.
I didn't say that. I did not say that.
Only to his face.
I did not say those words.
Sounds good to me. All right. Zach, I think it's your turn.
Cool. Funny book I recently just started reading is called Princess Bride.
Is that cheating?
Just started reading it for the first time, and it's quite funny. I've only gotten halfway through it though.
Well, I hate to tell you.
I was going to say, you're about to get spoilers galore today, I think.
Well, I've seen the movie, so
Okay.
even though I haven't seen the movie in a few years, I will still able to appreciate how accurate it was to the book from what I remember of it. And the book is, a lot more detail, but it's all rather quite enjoyable. But if that doesn't count, then I'll pick The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Another classic.
Yeah.
I was wondering who was going to fight for that one.
Well, I'll say number 1, so someone else can pick the other 5.
Oh, great. Because, I'm at the last of the list, so that's going to leave me with,
No, I'm going last. Thank you very
It's
much.
like in our classrooms, I was going to say what he said.
There you go.
I agree with Zach.
Can you add anything to what Zach said? Your grade depends on it.
Oh, all this teacher humor. It's amazing.
Oh, goodness.
Anything else, Zach?
No, I think those two speak for themselves.
All right, then, Keith, the floor is yours.
Well, I actually was going to say you couldn't go wrong with Douglas Adams, but if I can't do that, I think actually you might have convinced Nate to take a look at Monkey Island in the past, which is quite funny. It's an old point-and-click adventure game, but a lot of wordplay, a lot of pretty funny pirate puns, and I really enjoyed playing all the old LucasArts adventures. So if I can't have Douglas Adams, I'll go with that. So.
Well, just ask me about Loom.
You mean the latest masterpiece of fantasy storytelling from Lucasfilm's Brian Moriarty?
And you could have always gone with Dirk Gently as well, and you still could have had Douglas Adams.
Oh, that's true. I actually haven't read all the Dirk Gently stuff. I actually haven't read any of the Dirk Gently stuff, and I saw it's a Netflix series now, but I'm not sure.
I saw the Netflix series, and it's not the same as the...
It doesn't capture the same...
Yeah, it's different.
It lacks the charm that the books have, I think. It's a nice rendition, but
Yeah, I can agree with that.
All right, Jamie.
Hi.
Hi.
Your question caused me to reflect on my reading and realize that I must get my comedy from other places in my life, because I scrolled and scrolled through my Goodreads list and all of my books were very serious.
Lighten up.
I know. What's my problem? I thought I had a sense of humor, but apparently not, at least in my reading. The closest thing to humor, which I don't know if it even was actually humor, it was probably more like darkly funny because it was so familiar, and that was this book called Convenience Store Woman. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of that book, but it's a book about a woman...
In a convenience store?
Go ahead and laugh because this is stupid. Yeah. This is a book about a Japanese woman who works in a convenience store.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I didn't see that one coming.
Oh, I've heard of this.
The plot twists are like stunning, first of all. This is maybe a spoiler, but that's the darkly funny part about it, is that it's about this lady and how she starts working in a convenience store and then she just kind of ends up continuing to work there, and it was funny, and it was, but also like, yeah, a little bit creepy. I don't know. I ended up liking it more than I thought I would. Like, as I went along, I felt like, really? Like, this is what this book is? But it's translated. It was written in Japanese and then translated, so I do think books like that are interesting. I can read Japanese, but it's pretty laborious, so I just go the lazy way and read translated books, and so that's why I find them interesting. Anyway, probably not the same category of comedy, but the scenes of like being in a convenience store in Japan are so familiar, and I like the way they were written, so I think you all would be amused by that part of it at least.
Yeah, thanks.
I'll have to check it out because I have never heard of it before.
Yeah, here, let me tell you the author's name. Sayaka Murata.
Okay.
The memorable title, as I said, Convenience Store Woman. And it's not very long. I think it would be quick for most of you. You know, I think I actually listened to it on audio. So that's my offering. I hope somebody likes it.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Angie.
My recommendation is What If by Randall Munroe. I actually listened to the audiobook, which is read by Will Wheaton. And so, of course, he makes it great. But it's serious scientific answers to absurd hypothetical questions. So, like, what if a T-Rex got sucked up into a black hole? Or things like that.
Ooh,
and
that's
so,
scary.
Now, the real question, though, is do they answer the question of who would win in a fight between a velociraptor and, like, Rambo?
There are a couple questions like that.
Then I feel like I need to read this right now.
Oh, this is by the guy who did XKCD.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, I've seen this advertised. It looks like a good book. I haven't had a chance to read it, but it looks really good.
I would highly recommend the audiobook.
It's really good. You guys will all love it. Like, scrap what I just said and just go straight to that instead.
Jamie's book is second.
My list now. I've just moved Jamie down to the bottom.
All right, Terence.
Yes.
All right, Terence. Okay, sure. I deserve that. That's fine. Go ahead.
Jamie, I thought you were going to say Strange Planet.
I mean, I probably should have said Strange Planet. I don't know. If you guys crack more jokes, maybe I'll wake up. My brain is not really fully
So
working.
you're saying we're not funny enough?
I'm saying that normally this is around the time that I go to bed, not when I stay up and try to be witty. So, yeah.
Well, then we'll try to keep things moving for you.
Thank you.
And on that note, I believe it is Nate Gibson's turn next.
This is a classic one, and it was recently readapted into a new TV series that's All Creatures Great and Small by James Herriot. If you're not familiar with it, this is the story, like kind of semi-autobiographical, written by James Herriot, who is a vet in the Yorkshire Dales. And the series kind of recounts his whole career, like when he first got into veterinary practice in the 1930s, so right before World War II, and at a time when draft horses were kind of like the use of draft horses on big farms were starting to be in decline, and they were starting to use like tractors and more modern equipment, and also at the same time, like small animal practice was starting to become more common, so dogs and cats. And so it's very funny though, because a lot of the humor comes from the clash between James Herriot, who's Scottish, and the Yorkshire Dales farmers, who are very, very down to earth and kind of humorless in a lot of ways, just very like plain spoken, and some of the tensions that arise from just the difference in culture, but also all of his clashes with his boss, Siegfried. He's just a very eccentric and memorable character. Like, he keeps contradicting himself and telling James to do different things. And so there's one memorable story where they're driving to a call together. They're supposed to do a post-mortem on a sheep, and Siegfried's driving, and he keeps asking James what farm they're going to, and James is saying, well, it's the Brighton farm. It's the Brighton farm. And Siegfried, who's like talking the whole time, keeps missing what James is saying, and he thinks they're going to the Broughton farm. And so they go to the Broughton farm, and he barges into the house because nobody's outside waiting for them. He barges into the house where the family's sitting down for breakfast, and he's like, "Give me your sharpest knife." And the wife is just terrified. She's like, "What's going on?" And so she gets the sharpest knife out of the drawer, and he starts sharpening it in front of them because he's going to do the post-mortem on a dead sheep. And of course they don't have any sheep, and that comes to light eventually, and then he blames James for the whole thing, and of course it's Siegfried's fault because he wasn't listening. But there's a lot of stories that kind of, like, that's the point of humor, is that Siegfried doesn't listen, and he's pretty hypocritical, and so it's told all very tongue-in-cheek. But there's also a love story that runs through it. It's about how James Herriot met and fell in love with his wife Helen. It's a wonderful and timeless story, and the TV series that just came out recently, I think it's PBS, not exactly sure, but it's a very good adaptation, so highly recommend it. Very funny.
That is a good book. I remember from when I was in high school, I really enjoyed that series. There's a couple of books in that series, but I really like that one.
Nate, what a clean analysis you gave. I thought you were going to say most of the humor came from how much animal poo was everywhere. I mean, that's the thing. I just thought you were going to go straight to that, so it was very delicate of you to talk about the other humor.
Well, the interesting thing is, speaking as a farm kid and he was a vet, I think that kind of just loses its novelty after a while, and that's, yeah.
Poo can be novel?
I guess so.
I believe, Terence, it's your turn.
Oh, great. Thank you. I have such pressure now. Which one should I choose? I have so many. I think I'm going to recommend a Canadian, actually TV series from a number of years back called Little Mosque on the Prairie. It was, yes, it is not anything related to the Little House, but it's a story of a small town in Saskatchewan, and they have a little mosque that actually rents room from the local Anglican church. It's basically this small Muslim community in a very small Canadian town trying to make their way, and a clash between some of the more older traditional Muslims and their new somewhat more liberal imam and just all the relationships in the town. There's a local shock jock who always considers them terrorists and things like that. The Anglican priest actually develops a good friendship with the imam, and they learn to appreciate each other's religion. And it's a very funny series. I don't have any humorous stories from it, but it's pretty funny. I'd highly recommend it if you can find it.
So I'm a little disappointed because I came with 3 different books ready in case somebody stole one of mine, and nobody took any of them.
So sorry to disappoint you.
So I was a little like, oh, now I actually have to make a decision.
The Princess Bride wasn't on your list of top 3?
No, it was because we're already going to talk about Princess Bride, so I assumed that one was off the table.
Nobody tells Zach that we're going over that story?
I thought
we're
we did.
What?
Surprise!
Surprise! Because I'm going last and I get to cheat, I'm going to just tell all 3 real quick.
Yeah, that's definitely cheating.
So the first ones I was going to mention were the Discworld series, because I've been reworking my way back through it again because they're classics and I love them all. Most recently, I reread Equal Rights, which is the story of the Discworld's first female wizard. Then, of course, the Dan Morin books I do love.
They are good.
Because of just the witty banter and the characterization. I just love that. But the final one that I wanted to mention was a book called Ayawade on Ayawade. It is a book written by Richard Ayawade about Richard Ayawade. If you've ever seen anything that he's on, it is written very much in that style of sense of humor. But one of the things that I love the most is apparently in the physical book, he had a lot of footnotes. So in the audiobook, he decided to put a different spin on those footnotes where he would actually interrupt himself with a slightly different tone to differentiate between the footnote and the actual story, and would constantly say things like, and you see, I don't think that footnotes really work in this format, but here we are, and really I thought you should have gotten the physical book rather than the audiobook, but you made your choice. And so it is a funny book, but yeah, it's just very silly. But yes, I enjoy all 3 of those, and because I was going last, I get to cheat. All right. Thank you for all of your recommendations. Now I have a whole bunch of other things that I need to read. I think it's about time that we get into the main reason that we're all here today. And that reason is one of the greatest stories ever told. Perhaps one of the most perfect stories ever told.
Classic tale of true love and high adventure. Would you say it's that?
I would definitely say it's a classic tale of true love and high adventure. I would also say that it's got fencing, fighting.
And you have to admire a guy who calls his own book a new classic before it's published and everyone had a chance to read it, right?
But it's only the good parts.
But it's not his own book. He's abridging S. Morgenstern's book, Nate.
No, but I mean, that's what William Goldman says about S. Morgenstern.
Yes, but you also have to realize that when I first found the book, I literally spent several days trying to find the unabridged version.
But why would you want the unabridged version? This just got the good parts.
I know it's just got the good parts, but I'm a stickler for unabridged versions.
That was actually one thing. If you look on Amazon, there's a lot of people really upset at the abridger for taking up so much time. They're like, he talks about himself all the time. Just give us the story.
Oh, for goodness sakes.
They're posting these unironically. These are actual reviews that they're like rating down the book because they say the abridger ruins it.
Oh, man.
I will say the thing that makes me laugh and cry at the same time is the fact that, because I do so much of my reading through audio right now, in looking for a audiobook reading of this book, the only one that was actually on there was an abridgment.
I know. That was the same thing for me.
A true abridgment where it was only like 3 hours long. So it wasn't just an abridgment in the sense of this is the framing device. This is a abridgment of the abridged framing device. And it made me weep.
Which, to be fair, is kind of what the movie is. But with the book, the whole conceit of the abridgment is part of why it's so funny. Keith and I were talking about this earlier. We had a student a few years back who was just a brilliant student, and she read Princess Bride. What did you say, Keith? She came into her freshman year having read it?
Yes.
But she expressed disappointment that she couldn't find the unabridged version.
Right. And like, this is one of the smartest students I had ever taught. So, you know, apparently it's such a good framing device that, people fall for it.
I think, to be fair, if I read this when I was a freshman in high school, I might not have gotten it either, but it's not until you try to read, I should say, like the unabridged version of things like Les Miserables.
Yes.
Which I still haven't gotten through the whole thing, but when you spend, or try to spend, 100 pages reading about the Battle of Waterloo, which, like, it's a total digression from the plot. It's like, here's the Thénardiers. By the way, Mr. Thénardier was in the Battle of Waterloo. Here's like one of the most detailed accounts of the Battle of Waterloo ever written.
Yeah, and then here's a paragraph of where he was in that battle.
Yeah, and then like Jean Valjean carries Marius down into the sewers. Now we're going to give you several chapters about the layout and the history of the sewer system of Paris. And so that's why, like, when you get to those editor's notes in Princess Bride, where, and now the S. Morgenstern goes on for 100 pages about Buttercup's clothing, and, like, it's just, like, so ridiculous. It's so clearly a satire of that kind of flowery and long-winded writing. But you have to have read or tried to read those books before you get that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say that I did read the unabridged Les Mis, and yeah, it was a slog. I mean, even the part that was totally worth it because, like, it gets into a character. Like, one of the first chapters is talking all about the backstory of the priest, who is, if you've only experienced Les Mis through the musical, it's the priest at the very beginning who's in part of the first song. And that's the only part he is in. And yet, in the book, he's got, like, 4 chapters dedicated to his history.
Whoa.
So when you think about it in those terms, actually, William Goldman was actually holding back quite a bit. He could have really, thrown a lot more punches at that romantic style of writing.
Hey, what if I really wanted all those chapters on the lady who was bringing all the hats?
Slightly off topic, but when you talk about the movie being an abridgment, the thing is, it was also abridged by the author, which Zach mentioned this earlier too. One thing I really enjoy about the book and the movie is that they are so close. I mean, like the dialogue, and for me especially, one part that I love is the Miracle Max scene, because I know that Billy Crystal ad-libbed huge chunks of that. So to be able to actually read the book and see what Billy Crystal actually was given as a script, and then to be able to see where he took that is a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. I love that character too.
Oh, Miracle Max is one of the best parts. Him and Carol Kane together have great chemistry.
I had grown up watching the movie and then read the book later in life. And when you saw that, like, all of the interjections from the movie were originally the abridger in the framing device was saying, "Oh, and I said this to my dad." And in the movie, it's the kid saying the exact same line to his grandpa. Who gets Humperdinck? Wait, you mean he wins?
Good people die.
Mm-hmm.
The world isn't fair.
Does anyone have a story about where they read it first? Or watched it?
Yeah, I do. So, I mean, I'd seen the movie and stuff, but actually reading the book, it was when Sarah, my wife, and I were still dating. She made me read the book, and I was really enjoying it. I was working at a middle school at the time as a long-term substitute for a special ed class, and so we went out on a field trip, taking them out, let them have some work experience and stuff like that, get to like see some community jobs and things, and I brought the book with me, and so I was so into it and everything. I was riding on the bus back. I was just basically a parapro at the time and helping all the students get off the bus and everything like that. I actually left the book on the bus, and I was almost done with it, and I was like, oh no, and it was Sarah's copy of the book. And so I was freaking out, and so after work I was like, what am I going to do? So I called around, we got the bus dispatch to find which bus it was, and to actually get them to bring a school bus back so that I could get my copy of The Princess Bride back so I could finish it.
Wow.
But it's actually Sarah's copy of The Princess Bride, so that way I also wasn't finished.
Nice.
But that was a lot of fun. I hadn't read it until I was, into my 20s there. But I remember that part of it, it was that important. I was like, I cannot lose this book. This is too good of a book, and she will be so upset. So that's when I first came across it, and it was so much fun.
I have a little story about one time I watched it as well. I was a 9th grader. I was a student at the time, and we were in Guam running our cross-country races.
Sorry, I know where this story is going.
Yes. And there was a pretty unanimous decision, I believe, to watch The Princess Bride as our movie that night. And our head coach was very adamant that no one should quote the movie, especially because there's a couple of people there that hadn't seen the movie. So he was very adamant that no one should quote the movie because, it could disrupt the people's...
This sounds like a very wise man.
Experiences. Yeah, very wise man. I think his name was Nate. Nate Rudd it was. Yeah. And so Nate Rudd said no quoting the movie, and the team obeyed. And to our bewilderment and dismay, the only person quoting the movie the entire time was our very own coach, Nate Rudd. But it was more just instinct and reaction for him more than anything, but it made it overall a more enjoyable experience to
Good, I'm glad
to see him constantly fight himself to not quote the movie, even though his heart so longed to.
Yeah, because I can just see Nate sitting there going, "Too brave." I'm not quoting the movie.
Exactly, that's exactly what happened. Or he would try to say it really quietly, and we would all look over, and he'd be like, "Oh, sorry."
But it was kind of tradition to watch this movie every summer. And so I've watched the movie, I feel like hundreds of times. But it was always with the same group of people, same group of friends. But of course, we always had new people joining us. And yeah, it's just a really clear summer memory that I have of every summer. And I got to meet up with one of those friends over this summer. And of course, it came up and we started quoting everything. And yeah, it's just a cool summer memory to have from childhood. So I have a lot of fond memories of watching the movie with friends.
When I was maybe 6 years old, my cousin, who was about 10 years older than me, was watching the movie, and I just kind of wandered through in the scene where Wesley's being tortured and having his life sucked away on the machine, and it just totally freaked me out. I saw that scene out of context. I was just terrified. I did not want to watch The Princess Bride for many years after that, because I thought, what kind of torturous horror movie is this? And then when I was in middle school, my history teacher said, "Okay, I'm going to show all of you guys a documentary about the Middle Ages." Turns out it was The Princess Bride. Now, as a history teacher, I question the actual historical value of it, but there is immense cultural value behind showing everybody that movie. It's one of those things that I think just from a cultural perspective really probably should be required viewing at some point. Anyway, so I remember being freaked out because I was like, why is he showing us this horror movie? And then it was so funny and it just caught me off guard. I think it took me a few years before I read the book, but then it was absolutely delightful to realize that the book was brilliantly funny and hilarious in its own way. And so it's one of my all-time favorite movies and books.
Well, me being the old guy here, I was almost graduated high school by the time the movie actually came out. I believe I watched it when I was in university, and then I read the book sometime quite a ways after that. I don't have clear memories of either the first time or the many, many other times that I've watched it. But for me, actually, one of the best things has been introducing my boys to it. I mean, all three of my boys now have seen it probably several times and are all big fans. And that has been just a great pleasure for me.
I will say that for me, it's hard to place when I first saw it because I just remember having watched it constantly growing up. So I don't remember when I first saw it, but I do remember a very significant moment where I actually read the back of the box at one point. And yes, this was when we had the VHS box, and realized for the first time, oh, this was designed to be a comedy. Because it literally says comedy right in the back description. And I went, oh, it was designed that way. I just loved it because I found it funny. It was meant to be funny.
Yeah, it's funny. Comedy works that way,
What? That was one of the things that I definitely remember. Also, I just like to say that it always made me smile whenever S. Morgenstern in the book tried to place a time of when this story was actually happening. It was after Blue Jeans.
Yes, yes.
And well after taxes and stew.
Yes. Oh, of course, stew. I mean, everything's after stew.
So I have a question for everybody. If you could only take one scene from this entire movie, what's your favorite scene?
Oh, boy.
Movie, not book?
Oh, man.
Movie or book?
You say it depends on the medium, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm just curious on where everybody's favorite scenes are, because I can tell you, beyond a shadow of a doubt, for me, it's always going to be the Miracle Max scene.
Yeah, well, that was what I was going to say, too.
In the book, for me, it's absolutely Inigo and Wesley's sword fight. 100%. The book does it so much better than the movie just because, you know, there are limitations on actors that are not on actual, you know, wizards with the blade. So
Yes, that's true.
Yes. And I feel like the book definitely gets into the level of difference between the two. Just that level of detail where they got into, oh, yes, in wide open areas, Wesley had the advantage.
I liked when, you know, they had both switched to their right hand and everything. But that initial moment in the book where it's like, you know, Inigo thinks he has him. He's like, okay, I'm going to humor him here. Boy, he's actually doing pretty well. I'm going to let him feel good about himself before I kill him. And then he's like, he tries to make the strike. He counters with this, and then he blocked it. He blocked it. Nothing worked. He keeps attacking. I love how it's like, it's just so surprising. And then he's like, okay, nope, now it's time, right hand. And then it's like Wesley's right hand. And then it's talking about how, oh, he was just a hair quicker, a fraction stronger or something like that. It wasn't much, but it was enough. And then the sword goes flying from his hand. And it's just like, if they had gotten that right, this almost needs to be an anime to get it right. You know, because you can't get it right with people. Maybe with special effects today, they could finally get that scene to be as intense and perfect as that fight is, but I have not read a better sword fight than that.
I'm going to say right now, it should not be remade, though.
Oh, no.
I would love to see a anime of that scene, that fight. You know, just a choreography of that fight done beyond what Cary Elwes and Mandy Patinkin could do. You know, get actual professional level fencers to do this, and I think it could be really cool. Not the whole movie, but that scene. That's one of my favorites. I love that scene.
Just that scene.
Yeah, with the moonlight in the background and everything. Like, in my mind's eye, I imagine a giant full moon, like from Bruce Almighty size full moon behind them as, you know, it pans across the cliffs and you can't even see their blades. They're moving so quickly. It's such a good scene. I love that scene.
Yeah.
The scene from the book that made me laugh the hardest, it's actually the very last scene of the book, some of the closing lines. Having seen the movie ends on a very upbeat and happy, traditional happily ever after note.
Oh, yeah.
But then the book, and it caught me so off guard that I had to put the book down. I was laughing so hard and crying because I was laughing so hard. So it's like, and they lived happily ever after. That is until Fezzik's horse lost its shoe and Wesley relapsed and died again. And like, it lists all these like terrible things that happened to them. The end. Like,
yeah, Buttercup lost her looks and Inigo got bested by some young upstart or something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
Have you guys read Buttercup's Baby?
I started it. I've not.
Chapter 1 is called Fezzik Dies. But Goldman comes in and interrupts Morgenstern and doesn't tell us what actually happened.
Yeah, right.
He's like, I don't think he'll actually kill him off, do you? I mean, he was such a good character.
Oh, yeah, he keeps going on and on about Fezzik and that.
It's just so irreverent. Like, the book it so doesn't take itself seriously. And it caught me so off guard at that point. Oh man, that's the scene that always comes to mind when I think about the book.
The Zoo of Death always makes me smile, too.
That's a lot better in the book.
I love the fact that the very end of the Zoo of Death, where Zach, plug your ears.
Sure, yeah.
Like, they're building up to the spider. Fezzik just bursts through the door. So, yeah. I love the Battle of Wits is always good with Vicini. Wallace Shawn is just, he's hilarious. I see, I talk about my boys and stuff. My boys now also make connections with anytime Wallace Shawn's in something, like, even Toy Story. Oh, yeah, that's Rex's voice, isn't it? And it's like, yeah, it is. Or my family's a huge fan of the TV series Psych. Carrie Elways has been on Psych a couple of times, and so it's like, oh, look, it's
Nice.
Wesley and stuff like that. So everything, not everything, but a lot of my son's frames of reference is based on Princess Bride and the actors from it.
Not the Grand Nagus from Deep Space Nine.
No, oddly, they haven't seen Deep Space Nine, so that would be a no on that.
Okay.
What?
They just have never watched it.
Oh.
Vincini, he's very, very short on charm.
But he brings an awful lot of harm.
I like the Battle of Wits too. I think I was going to pick that one. I think the other one I too like too is the Shrieking Eels, or the sharks in the book, but it kind of does show Vizzini's smarts. Like, he's going to outwit her. Yeah, she's still panicking, which puts her at a disadvantage, and he's still thinking straight, and he's going to be able to outwit her, unfortunately.
Well, you never go
Head to head with Sicilian when death is on the line.
Yeah.
I actually used that scene in my world history class because he talks about making one of the classic blunders whenever I'm teaching Napoleon or Hitler or Alexander the Great. Never get involved in a land war in Asia.
From the first third that I've read so far, I appreciate how much in depth the book goes to each of the characters, to the swordsman, to the giant, and to the Sicilian, how it gives them all a nice, deep, rich background that you only get a slight glimpse of in the movie.
Yeah. Keith and Ryan and I were talking this morning, and the only possible argument we could think of for a remake would be like a mini-series where you get those flashbacks and you get some of that backstory.
Yeah, a Netflix series would be cool. Netflix has been doing so many good background things.
You get so much more into the characterization of these people and why they are like the way they are through the book. For me, I always loved hearing about why Fezzik was the way he was, that was expressed in the book, that you only got glimpses of in the movie.
You mean his childhood?
Yeah, his childhood.
He's timid the way he's timid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's codependent on Vizzini.
Yes.
Even Inigo. Mm-hmm.
I think it comes down to the fact that he said it early in his background story. He says, hell to him is being left alone.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so for him, abandonment is his biggest fear. Whether it's Vincini or Inigo or whoever, he needs somebody in his life.
And really, when you think about it, it's a credit to the actors that they were able to make these characters as memorable and three-dimensional as they did, even though we don't get that backstory in the movie.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I mean, reading the book, you're like, oh, I understood all that without reading it. Not all of it, I guess, but you got the feel of it at least. Mm-hmm.
I just loved getting more into the head of these characters.
I do feel that I haven't heard enough discussion of Inigo Montoya.
You mean how he's looking for a six-fingered man?
Yes. And just his speech, his singular determination to not only complete his mission, but give his speech the exact same way every time. I love that so much.
Mm-hmm.
I think his utter disappointment in himself at the end, in his battle with the six-fingered man, with Count Rugen, Manapinkin acts that just so well.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
When he comes through the door and is like stabbed and is losing and stuff like this, and his utter disappointment in himself,
mm-hmm.
and his fight to get himself, back up, which also is described really well in the book.
That's the thing, is in the book it really talks about like how he pushed himself because he felt like he had failed his father.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I just love his backstory in the book too.
Yeah, the backstories are good.
Mm-hmm.
His whole journey of training that he took off when he was a kid, and he shows up 10 years later, talks about how all he's been doing is training, and he's like, well, not just learning the sword. 10 years is 3,600 days, so that's like 86,000 hours. Well, I slept 4 hours a night, so there's that.
I gripped rocks for 2 hours a day.
Yeah, I squeezed rocks, and I was running and I was doing this, and so it was probably about 50,000 hours. 50,000 hours learning the sword. Yeah. So.
But I do like how at the same time his father Domingo's friend said, "You will never be a master because you're ruled by rage." Yeah, although he has a certain mastery.
I liked his whole thing where as soon as he tells him, "You are not now, nor will you ever be a master," and he's like, "Oh, okay, well, I guess I better go train again. I'm not finished." And then he says, that there was a wizard long ago, there have been none since, and you would never in this world have beaten him, but he would never in this world beat you. That's a cool line. That's got to make him feel good to hear that from the person he looked up to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Also, that swordsmith, that entire relationship with his father.
Because he must have been able to make swords too, right? I mean, we just assumed that Domingo was the better sword.
No, Yesti absolutely made swords. He grew fat, but he was still able to make them. And but anytime he had one that he was like, okay, this is beyond me, he would go to Domingo.
Right.
But then eventually he just kept making them himself, and he doubled his prices, then doubled them again, then quadrupled them, and people still wanted them.
Even though they were more factory swords at that point, probably just churning them out.
It's exactly right. He said they had long since their luster, but it was the brand, and it's an interesting commentary on consumer culture too.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I just have to get that Supreme shirt.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he doubled and then tripled, so then in total, it was 12 times his original expensive price.
Yeah, and the nobles still wanted a Yesti sword.
Yeah, he had a 4-year wait time.
Yeah, 4-year wait, yep. And it had to be paid up front in jewels.
It's a way to get around the taxes.
I will say one thing about this is it definitely has a legacy to where, like, just interacting with people that have watched or read it, you can just tell, and it's just like this natural thing. It's like, you say somebody, I give you my word as a Spaniard, and the natural response is...
No good, I've known too many Spaniards.
And it's just natural. People just do that. It's part of the, I think Nate mentioned before, the cultural impact that this had. And it's just got this legacy that it's been around for decades, and it's still fresh and still relevant, and it's just one of those movies / books that just resonates with people and is honestly kind of timeless. So
yeah, it's kind of unusual in that regard too, because there's not that many shared cultural touchstones. Like I grew up watching The Simpsons, and my brother and I can kind of communicate in Simpsons quotes and Simpsons references, because we have one for almost every single occasion, but that's just like, it's a secret language that he and I speak, and maybe a couple of our friends. But like The Princess Bride, when I first came to your house, it was something where I realized pretty quickly, if you say inconceivable, everybody automatically knows what you're referencing.
Mm-hmm. But I don't think that word means what you think it means.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and that's like the response that you're going to get. And so it was funny, because tonight I was chaperoning a student event over at the school, and I'd mentioned that I was going to record this podcast later, and only one of the students, I think there were probably 20 there at the time, only one of the students had ever seen The Princess Bride. And so it's just like, it's a cultural touchstone that I think is fading.
No. What this tells me is, I think this needs to be the class event on the day before Christmas break.
Yeah, maybe so. Like,
I'll chaperone it.
No.
If you tell the Stuco that, they will sign you up.
Oh, okay, never mind. I didn't actually say that. This podcast comes out after the event, right?
I have record evidence here.
Yeah, they need to put that on the middle school thing. My daughter was asking me which movie she should vote for the parties. I was like, no, you suggest your own.
Yeah, there you go.
See, the problem I have is the fact that the lunch movies in the auditorium, every time it's like the same sort of movies. It's like, oh, we're going to watch Madagascar and things like that. And I mean, those are lovely films, but why don't they watch Princess Bride?
That being said, there are some movies that I would be upset if my kids watched elsewhere before I got to watch it with them, because I want to, see how they react and that type of stuff.
That's like, I agree with that. I mean, I had so much pleasure from watching it with my kids, so I can see that would be a...
I do agree that it is hard, because it does feel like it's a touchstone that might be fading for some people. And it's sad.
I did sit through and add a few of the musical numbers to I have like an instrumental music playlist that I like to put stuff in, and I did add a few of those music numbers to that just this week, because I was like, oh yeah, I should add these songs. So yeah, I think what's nice about that playlist that I have is that I've had songs from a bunch of different things, and when they come up, it's like, oh yeah, I remember that, piece of music from that movie or something like that. So I think this will hit that chord again when I'm doing my work and I hear the Princess Bride music. I'm like, oh yeah, all those emotions come back. And I think that's kind of nice about this music, because it's pretty unique in many ways.
Specifically with the movie, I'd like to remind everybody of the wonders that is Columbo.
Peter Falk.
Yeah, and even Fred Savage.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And Fred Savage.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was another thing, just how much of a cultural icon it is, that when the Deadpool movie came out, that was the promotion that they used.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. Yeah, it was.
I do like the video game too. It's really old.
Wait, what? What?
The baseball game that Fred Savage's character is playing on the
right at the very beginning.
The movie opens with "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" in glorious, 4-bit music.
8-bit sound, yes.
Wow.
You think that had all of 8 bits?
No,
Wow, that's saying a lot.
Yeah, maybe probably 4-bit is probably more accurate. Graphics maybe were 8-bit. But the entire cast, I mean, Fred Savage and Columbo, and because I can't remember his name, for goodness sakes.
Peter Falk.
Thank you, Peter Falk. Thank you. But the entire cast, they just did such a great job. They work so well together. Even Andre the Giant, which is like, you don't think of Andre the Giant necessarily as an actor, but he was really, really good in that role.
Also, we're doing this at the right time of year because if you look at the decorations in Fred Savage's character rooms, it's Christmas time. So this is a Christmas movie.
Christmas movie.
Yes, it is indeed a Christmas movie. I get it. Actually, I do recall watching it a lot during Christmas time growing up.
Well, it's a good family movie.
Yeah.
It is a good family movie.
Oh, one other thing about it, the movie and the book, I can't tell you how many times things have been referred to as a Dread Pirate Roberts situation.
My name is Ryan.
And if you're clued into the book and the movie, you know exactly what that means. And people are like, oh, okay, I get it, yeah. I don't want to spoil anything, but I imagine, with a 30-year-old movie or whatever, that there's not that many spoilers left for your listeners, but the very fact that means legacy is another example of that cultural hallmark. So.
Well, I always found it great because the line is, "I am not the Dread Pirate Roberts. My name is Ryan."
Dread Pirate before that was Cummerbund, wasn't it?
Something like that.
And we haven't even talked about the ROUS.
No, I'm surprised.
I don't think they exist.
I actually almost brought that up as my favorite scene. I don't know why, because I was terrified of that scene as a kid. But I think it's because it's where you start seeing their relationship. I mean, she's earnestly trying to learn about what's happened to him, and then of course the lightning sand happens, and so it's like a bunch of intense things happen together, but it's also bringing them together too. So
I thought you were just going to mention the really bad special effects of the ROUS.
I mean that too.
Again, I don't think they exist.
Another case for a possible remake. Like I said, special effects would be the only reason a remake would be okay, but the casting would have to be perfect.
Well, so here's the thing. Should they do a George Lucas remake?
No.
No.
Do a digital remaster.
No, but honestly, those to me, that's part of the
charm.
The charm. Like, even in the battle between Wesley and Inigo, when they do the whole gymnastics flipping around on the thing and they land, and it's like really obvious that they've landed on a mat. It's like it's just so obvious there's a mat there. And it doesn't matter. It's like, that's just, yeah, of course.
Or the fact that the bar that they're spinning around clearly has 2 specific handholds.
Yes, it's a gymnastics bar.
Yeah. Or the climbing up the cliffs of insanity, and it's like really clear they're going up a whole lot faster than their hands are moving. It all just adds to the charm of the movie.
Were there any other scenes that we didn't get a chance to mention that really stick out to people?
Well, there's the classic marriage
Oh, marriage,
scene.
yes, that's true. Yeah.
Oh,
yes.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. But it brings us together today.
Man and wife, say man and wife.
Man and wife.
Actually, one last little thing that I learned from the book that I didn't realize from the movie was that Yellen and the albino were cousins.
Actually, I was just about to say that too. Yeah, I didn't actually remember that. And then reading the book again for this, I was like, oh, yeah, they're actually cousins.
Yeah, they're cousins, yeah. And then there's the whole idea that Humperdinck tells Yellen that he's going to kill the princess and then start the war, and then that Yellen's going to be the ruler in Gilder, because Rugen obviously is not going to go there with his obsession with his, treatise on pain. And just that whole part, which is not in the movie, is just a nice added bit.
I know I keep mentioning it, but yeah, I just love the Miracle Max scene. Like, that entire, everything about that scene.
Liar! Liar! Back witch.
He said to blave. To blave.
which everybody knows means to bluff.
Yes.
Bobby owes you money.
Actually, I watched a little short video clip about that specific scene and them recording that scene. And apparently they spent the entire day on that scene because Billy Crystal improvised every line, but every time they took a shot, he said different lines.
Oh, gosh.
And so then it took the entire day because everybody had to hold a straight face as he said something totally different. And actually, I can't remember if it was the director or someone else on the production staff had to leave set because his laughter kept interfering with the recording.
You mean like somebody couldn't hold in the laugh when he starts talking about the wonderful mutton, lettuce, and tomato where the mutton's nice and lean and
Thinly sliced,
Right.
But in the book, again, it's not that. It's cough drops.
No, it's cough drops.
Nothing better than cough drops.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I will say that scene was such a touchstone in my family that we would regularly yell out, "Have fun storming the castle."
You think it'll work?
It'll take a miracle.
You still do that at work.
Bye-bye. Yeah, so like that was my entire childhood.
I did like that they give a bit more explanation of to why Fezzik has a Holocaust cloak in the book. A little bit more explanation there. Like, oh, okay, because he...
Yeah, an extra one line.
Well, I mean, I think the timeline in the book,
yes,
because he counts it down to the minute, is kind of fun in the book where, like, and this happened with this hours and had this many and we had this much time left.
But not really.
Actually, I think you had mentioned, somebody had mentioned this earlier, but I do think it interesting, when they were talking about the ending, how in the movie, at least my recollection is that I were meant to believe that the miracle pill would bring him back to life. But I do kind of like the questioning in the book the whole time where, is he actually back to life or is he only back to life for 40 minutes? Or how long is he back to life for? So that's kind of fun.
Oh, the charging of the gate where they actually light the Holocaust cloak on fire. That is a beautiful scene.
Yes.
In both the book and the movie.
There will be no survivors.
I will say I'm actually very surprised at how few times people have said inconceivable in this podcast. I was expecting more.
It would very quickly lose all meaning.
Well, it doesn't mean what you think it means.
I just thought it was a great deal of restraint by all of you.
Well, I'm nothing if not restrained. So, yeah, it is getting late enough. So, shall we sum up?
Too long. Let's distill.
Let me explain. No, too long. Let me sum up. So, I guess for me, one of the reasons why I wanted to do this episode was simply because this is a touchstone for me. This is a favorite movie for me. This is a favorite story for me. This is a favorite book for me. And I wanted an excuse to gather all my friends and be like, hey guys, let me talk about what I love about this story. And that was why I decided to capture you all and be like, hey guys, we're going to talk about this story, whether you like it or not. And quite frankly, y'all like to talk about this story as well, because otherwise you would have said no to staying up this late.
Well, I think what we've realized is that sort of collectively, this is a hill to die on. This is an important cultural touchstone that, frankly, it would be a shame if it fell out of, I guess, the cultural lexicon.
We need to re-add it into the collective unconscious. Anything that anyone would like to add as we kind of wrap things up and sum things up?
Inconceivable.
It'll take a miracle. That's it. Let's all get it all out now. Every line that we can.
As you wish.
Get it out of your system.
Boo! Boo!
The Queen of Putrescence!
This is a kissing book?
There'll come a time where you don't mind that so much.
You're trying to kidnap what I've rightfully stolen.
Yeah. So, like we said, great story. I love it. You love it. We all love it. So we're going to wrap up and then we'll have a communal watching of this movie separately.
And congratulations on 50 episodes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you all for coming on this episode.
Well, for wrapping up, then I have to say to Nate and Ryan, good work, sleep well.
Yes.
Most likely kill you in the morning.
Never had a valet.
So, Ryan, what do you have for me next time?
So, next time, I feel like we should finally bring this journey to an end. The journey that has lasted us the 2 years that this podcast has existed. The journey of getting you through the first Mistborn series. So I'm going to have you read The Hero of Ages, and we're going to wrap up this story before I get you started on a whole new book.
Is this for 2 years? I think we read the first one
Around Christmas of last year, maybe.
Yes, maybe a year.
Maybe a year. Okay.
It is good to finish this. Like we've teased already, I have many questions, and you've promised me answers in this last book, right, Ryan? Everything gets answered, right?
I've promised that answers are provided.
Not everything, huh? I'm not going to get all my questions answered.
It depends on how many questions you have.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I think a lot of your questions will be answered.
That's good. Good news. Good news.
I don't know how far in the book you are right now, but I think a lot of your questions will be answered. So, we do hope that you found something nice about this hill that we were willing to die on, and we appreciate all of our listeners coming along on this journey. But if you've ever thought to yourself, hey, I really like these guys, and I wish I could support them in some way, well, know that you can. Visit myhilltodieon.com/members for more details. By becoming a member, it gives you a direct connection with us, and it allows you to suggest possible topics for our future member choice episodes. But know that the conversation doesn't have to end here. The discussion can continue with us through Reddit at subreddit myhilltodieon, or by contacting us through Twitter at myhilltodieon, or you can reach us by email, which is, to no one's surprise, myhilltodieon@gmail.com. And finally, we upload all of our episodes to our YouTube channel, which is also named, say it with me now, folks, My Hill to Die On. We got Nate, we got Terence, we got Nate, and we got Angie, right?
So far?
Yep. Mika. Oh, Mika's here too. Yes, we didn't forget about you.
She made herself known. Perfect.
Yes.
Guest starring role.
What kind of file do you want for audio?
A big one.
As big as you can make it.
Maximum.
Can I use GarageBand, or would you rather use QuickTime?
I've never used GarageBand. I'm sure you can. I just haven't done it before.
And if you record in GarageBand, you can set a metronome in the background, and you can talk in rhythm.
I can play the piano, too.
As long as the metronome is in the audio recording.
All right. I may have mentioned this in the email, but do not feel bad or worry if your joke gets covered up.
I will be devastated.
I'll fix it all in post.
Okay.
Notice he said joke. We all get one.
Oh, good.
Cute. I had a whole
Make
list
it count.
prepared.
I had a solid 10-minute set, and you guys are just going to cut that all away. Can't believe it.
I'll pare it down to a solid 3.
All my jokes I'm insecure about, then I'll mute on the FaceTime, but I'll have in the audio recording for you guys.
So it'll be a surprise just for me.
Yeah, exactly.
What have I gotten myself into?
Might just have a monologue in there, too.
At that point, there will be a tiny little chevron pointing down, an arrow pointing down.
No, it's just Chevron.
Ryan, I really appreciate your explanation.
Just make sure that it's set to like maximum, and make sure that the mic is set to the external mic and not the internal mic. And if that's all looking good, you just hit play and let it go.
Or record.
Or record, not play.
You mean that red button?
The big red button. You hit the big red button.
Ryan?
Yeah?
Sorry, what do you mean? I don't know how to check whether this is some internal mic or external mic.
So when you're in QuickTime,
Yeah.
did you hit the new audio recording thing?
Yeah.
Before you hit the big record button, there's a little arrow down right next to that record button.
You mean the chevron?
Yes, the chevron.
Is that a car?
That's a gas station, isn't it?
Yeah, yes it is.
I thought it was
it
a
is.
filling station.
Yes.
Yes.
Anyway, you click on the chevron that's pointing down,
Yes.
And then there will be some things that will pop up there. Do you see that?
Oh, yes. Set on external mic and maximum.
That's perfect.
Okay, great. On the left of the bar on the bottom, there's a speaker that's like crossed out. What does that mean?
Zach.
All right, Nate's here. Let's clap.
So yes, let's start by doing our clap just so I can sync up 9 tracks or whatever it's going to be. So on the count of 3, I'll go 3, 2, 1, and then where I would have said 0, I want everybody to clap. All right?
This is going to be hilarious.
So on the count of 0?
On the count of 0, right?
On the count of 0. 3, 2, 1.
That was not together.
Nope.
That was not together.
It's close enough for jazz. You guys are going to make editing this such a wonderful experience.
Your Christmas break is already decided, so...
I already have half a common joke in my mute file. No joke.
No, I don't believe you would be joking about that. I'm crying already.
We're building up enough laughter that we can put in your joke that you had in the mute file, so it's good.
Awesome.
Oh, there you go. You could just rearrange his words.
Actually, I think I'll take a couple of these moments where everybody's laughing and just use that as laugh tracks for all your jokes.
So even if they weren't funny...
Yeah, everybody
we'll
will think they're funny.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Well, should we get a couple of groans in there too?
Oh, yeah.
Man.
We get a boo. Ready?
Boo! I am actively not participating.
I might not be able to edit out all names.
It's going to be really hard to peep out all those Inigo Montoyas, I tell you.
I'm so sorry. I should have been calling him Inigo M.
No, that's too obvious. How about I, Montoya?
Oh, all right, sure.
Scott?
Well, we just lost him.
No!
Why did the alto wear tweed?
We'll never know.
Oh, I'm back. Apparently I went on too long. But anyway, excellent, funny book. FaceTime said just, no, never mind, you're done. Okay, before we do that, I only came for the appetizer. I'm sorry. I'm going to be leaving because I've got a morning thing, and so it's been fun.
No problem.
This little bit has been fun. So have a great discussion. I will definitely listen to the episode and hear all your...
Yeah, just make sure to send your audio track our way.
Yeah, you'll send out instructions, right?
Sure.
And I will tell you right now that I just discovered that my audio wasn't recording.
Oh, no!
I've got a recording now, but we'll just pretend I wasn't here for the beginning of the episode.
Or just do your book again.
Hey, welcome, Terence.
Hey, sorry I'm late.
Okay, have a great night, guys and gals. Bye-bye.
You.
I'm really sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. Actually, if you do want to quickly go back over your
Recommendation?
Your recommendation.
Maybe I'll do a different recommendation. Haha.
Haha.
I will recommend a podcast, actually. I'm going to recommend... See, I get 2 in. I will recommend...
Dungeons and Daddies.
No, that was... Great, that's the third one I want to do. No, I'm going to recommend Because News, a Canadian news comedy podcast. It's a very good podcast where they recap the news. They have a couple of comedians who come on and they recap the news. It's kind of like Wait, Don't Tell Me, but I find it funnier, in my opinion. So
I would agree.
Yes, so that was one of my other recommendations, and that's what I'm going with now that I'm being recorded.
Well, I hate to say it, but I believe Nate might have a backup of everybody's audio, so I might be able to extract some of what you said from that.
Oh, okay. Well then, sure, just pick one to cut out.
I'll get all of it. Don't you worry.
My recording just stopped a second ago. I started mine again, but I missed your second one.
That's okay.
Hey, welcome, Nate.
I don't know what happened. As soon as Scott said goodbye, everything stopped.
Oh.
So I missed your second one. I'm sorry, Terence.
It was the Canadian news comedy thing. Wait, don't. Not wait, don't tell me.
Not
Sorry.
wait, don't.
Because news.
Because
news.
It's
Yes,
because
that one.
news. Why?
Because news.
Because news.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for all of your recommendations. Like I said, now I have even more to listen to.
Oh, that was another thing, just how much of a cultural icon it is that when the Deadpool movie came out, that was the promotion that they used.
That's true. Yeah, it was.
They had Deadpool playing the role of the grandfather and adult Fred Savage duct taped to the bed.
Yep.
Getting read the story of Deadpool.
Being read a Christmas story of Deadpool, yes.
Yep.
So this is a Christmas movie.
Christmas movie. I asked my students about Christmas movies, and someone did bring up. Didn't bring up Princess Bride. They brought up
Die Hard.
Die Hard, but not Princess.
Die Hard?
Not Princess Bride. Yeah.
Why are the middle schoolers bringing up Die Hard?
Most of them had no concept of what I was talking about. What it was about.
Okay.
This takes one.
Yeah, no, I think there was a movie or somebody made a reference to it in like some comedy thing.
Oh, yeah, there's a very recent new Christmas rom-com on Netflix that just came out that referenced it a lot. That might be it.
Yeah, probably.
Yes, it is indeed a Christmas movie. I get it. Anyone, you got a peanut?